Good day, everyone. I am Abbey Randall, and together with my groupmates Arlene De Guzman and Noreen Daniela Fernandez, we will be discussing all about the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, or the CRPD.
The CRPD aims to end discrimination against individuals with disabilities and enhance their societal participation. It adopts a human rights perspective, emphasizing inclusion and recognizing societal barriers as the main cause of exclusion. The treaty respects the autonomy and diverse needs of persons with disabilities, promoting their involvement in decision-making and fostering international cooperation for advancing disability rights globally.
So before we proceed to the rationale of this treaty, what is CRPD? So, CRPD, or the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, is an international treaty that aims to promote, protect, and ensure the full enjoyment of all human rights by persons with disabilities. It was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly on December 13, 2006 and entered into force on May 3, 2008 after it was ratified by the required number of countries. The CRPD consists of a preamble and 50 articles that outline the rights of persons with disabilities and the obligations of states parties to ensure those rights. So let me give you the historical background of this treaty. So CRPD has its roots in the growing recognition of disability rights as an integral part of international human rights law. It emerged from a history of efforts to address the rights and well-being of persons with disabilities. It includes landmark documents like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The CRPD represents a milestone in the journey towards equality and inclusion. It was the culmination of decades of advocacy and collaboration within the international community, with significant contributions from organizations representing persons with disabilities. The drafting process led by the ad hoc committee established by the UN General Assembly involved extensive consultations and negotiations to develop a comprehensive treaty that would address the diverse needs and experiences of persons with disabilities worldwide. It was adopted on December 13, 2006 and entering into force on May 3, 2008. The CRPD signaled a global commitment to promoting, protecting, and ensuring the full enjoyment of human rights by persons with disabilities. Since then, it has served as a catalyst for legislative and policy reforms at the national level, driving progress towards a more inclusive and accessible society for all. So basically, what is the main purpose of this treaty? The main purpose of this treaty is to promote, protect, and ensure the full and equal enjoyment of all human rights and fundamental freedoms by all persons with disabilities, and to promote respect for their inherent dignity. So persons also with disabilities include those who have long-term physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory impairments which in interaction with various barriers that may hinder their full and effective participation in society on an equal basis with others. This treaty, or the CRPD, has 8 principles. Number 1, respect for inherent dignity, individual autonomy, including the freedom to make one's own choices, and independence of persons. Number 2, non-discrimination. Number 3, full and effective participation and inclusion in society. Number 4, respect for difference and acceptance of persons with disabilities as part of human diversity and humanity. Number 5, equality of opportunity. Number 6, accessibility. Number 7, equality between men and women. And lastly, respect for the evolving capacities of children with disabilities and respect for the right of children with disabilities to preserve their identities. Now, while everything inside this treaty is important, here are key provisions that sums up the treaty itself. First one, Article 5, Equality and Non-Discrimination. State parties recognize that all persons are equal before and under the law and are entitled without any discrimination to the equal protection and equal benefit of the law. State parties shall prohibit all discrimination on the basis of disability and guarantee to persons with disabilities equal and effective legal protection against discrimination on all grounds. In order to promote equality and eliminate discrimination, state parties shall take all appropriate steps to ensure that reasonable accommodation is provided. Specific measures which are necessary to accelerate or achieve de facto equality of persons with disabilities shall not be considered discrimination under the terms of the present convention. Second, Article 9, accessibility. So this part of the convention, states must ensure that persons with disabilities or PWD have equal access to the physical environment, transportation, information, and services provided to the public. This includes removing barriers in buildings, roads, schools, and workplace, as well as ensuring accessibility in communication, electronic services, and emergency services. So measures include setting accessibility standards, training stakeholders, providing signage in braille and easy-to-understand formats, offering live assistance and interpreters, promoting access to new technologies, and encouraging the development of accessible technologies. Third, Article 10, Right to Life. State parties reaffirm that every human being has the inherent right to life and shall take all necessary measures to ensure its effective enjoyment by persons with disabilities on an equal basis with others. Fourth, Article 12, Equal Recognition before the law. States must recognize PWDs as full legal persons, granting them equal legal capacity in all aspects of life. They should provide necessary support for exercising this capacity and establish safeguards against abuse, ensuring respect for the individual rights, will, and preferences. Additionally, states should guarantee equal access to property ownership, financial control, and access to financial services for PWDs, preventing arbitrary deprivation of property. Article 15, Freedom from torture or cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment is the fifth pertinent provision. So states here must ensure that no one, including PWDs, is subjected to torture or cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. This includes preventing non-consensual medical or scientific experimentation. They should implement measures to prevent such acts and ensure equal protection for PWDs. 6. Article 24, Education. States must guarantee the rights of persons with disabilities to inclusive education, aiming for their full development and participation in society. This includes ensuring that individuals are not excluded from education based on disability, providing reasonable accommodations, and offering necessary support within mainstream education settings. Additionally, states should facilitate the learning of various communications methods and life skills, employ qualified teachers with disabilities, and then ensure access to tertiary education and vocational training without discrimination. 7th, Article 25, Health. So states must ensure that PWDs have access to the highest attainable standard of health without discrimination. This includes providing gender-sensitive health services and rehabilitation. Specifically, states should offer the same quality and range of healthcare as provided to others, including sexual and reproductive health services. They must also address disability-specific health needs, offer services close to communities, ensure healthcare professionals are trained to provide equitable care, prohibit discrimination in health insurance, and then prevent denial of healthcare based on disability. Last pertinent provision is Article 27, Work and Employment. States must ensure that persons with disabilities or PWDs have equal opportunities in the workplace, including protection against discrimination and access to vocational guidance, training, and placement services. They should promote employment opportunities, career advancement, self-employment, and entrepreneurship for people with disabilities, both in the public and private sectors. This includes providing reasonable accommodations in the workplace and promoting vocational rehabilitation and return to work programs. Additionally, states must safeguard persons with disabilities from forced or compulsory labor.
United Nations General Assembly approved the text on December 13, 2006, and it became available for signature on March 30, 2007. On May 3, 2008, it was ratified by the 20th party and became effective. As of March 20, 2024, it has 164 signatures, 191 parties, 190 nations, and the European Union, which ratified it on December 23, 2010, and among its signatories is the Philippines. The Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities supervises the convention, and since 2008, yearly conferences of states parties to the CRPD has established rules for it. It was planned for the 13th Conference of States Parties to meet in June 2020 in New York. However, because of COVID-19 pandemic, the meeting was provisionally delayed to December 2020.
In the Philippines, the CRPD has brought changes to important legislations like Magna Carta for Disabled Person or the Republic Act No. 9442 and the Batas Pabansa bilang 344, which is known as Accessibility Law. The Magna Carta for Disabled Person is a law that guarantees affirmative action for the advantage of individuals with disabilities, and the Accessibility Law, which requires all public structures, buildings, and transportation must be accessible to persons having disability. Furthermore, the CRPD also motivated the creation of a law called Republic Act No. 11228 or Telecommuting Act. This rule allows people who have disabilities to work at their house. The reason behind making this law is because it understands that persons with disabilities need flexible job situations, and it supports their right to do work and good work conditions too. The treaty has urged countries to put into effect laws and rules that advocate for the rights of those with disabilities, leading to a more inclusive and accessible society. However, it is important to highlight that CRPD also has its own set of critics. A few civil society organizations and disability advocates argue that this treaty's emphasis on individual rights and duties of states might not give enough attention to environmental and social aspects which contribute towards disability. Some critics are concerned about the overemphasis on inclusion and accessibility by CRPD, fearing it could lead to medicalizing disabilities while ignoring their social or cultural dimensions. Despite these critics, the CRPD remains as an important step forward in supporting and safeguarding the rights of people with disabilities. The treaty has inspired a global movement for disability rights and has encouraged states to adopt a more inclusive and accessible society for all.
According to Reverend Dr. Gordon Earls Cowans, Regional Coordinator for the Caribbean for the World Council of Churches Ecumenical Disability Advocates Network or WCC-EDAN, Society has become more aware of the needs and abilities of individuals with disabilities. According to Cowans, acceptance of disability has not been a major problem and that people with disabilities are valued for their wholeness despite their disabilities. The primary focus of a 2-day training session on the application of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities or CRPD was on strengthening the ability of individuals with disabilities to advocate for themselves, understanding the United Nations and taking part in local, regional, and international arenas highlighted throughout the course. Cowans expressed that in order to create a potentially better environment out there, it is important that people with disabilities, especially the younger ones, have a stronger foundation in knowledge. Ms. Heba Hagras, a special rapporteur on the rights of persons with disabilities, has emphasized the need for unconditional humanitarian aid access to people with disabilities in the Gaza Strip. The expert emphasized the importance of ensuring aid reaches all civilians, particularly those with disabilities who may need assistive tools, food, water, medicine, sanitation, electricity, and healthcare. The region has increasing disability rates due to repeated armed conflicts and the current bombardment of the Gaza Strip. The denial of vital services exposes people with disabilities to heightened risks, including the risk of loss of life. The UN Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities urged parties to consider the situation of persons with disabilities when conducting hostilities, including warnings of attacks. The expert also urged for an immediate ceasefire and end to hostilities to ensure the protection and safety of civilians, including people with disabilities.